Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. It's in moving into the evening hours, and I'm trying to unwind, but I'm sitting down, and there was a couple of things I didn't get to touch on. One of the things I didn't get to touch on was this story on Kierra, which is a 26-year-old young black female who went missing in 2018. A postal worker who was last seen with a man that police are considering a person of interest. She went missing. And I want to kind of break that down and talk to you. Before I do, I want to remind you that we are in the midst of a fundraiser. If you believe in the work we do, everything from our research center has logged over 100,000 hours, 80,000 of that is me. Our think tank, our Black Men Lead Rite of Passage Initiative and wraparound services for young adult males, our services for battered women, our services for women who are trying to heal from trauma from childhood sexual abuse, mental health in general programs, advocacy for juvenile offenders and kids caught up in the system, recidivism programs for young black male offenders, trying to lower the recidivism rate, all of the stuff we've been doing for years. If you followed, you know. This stuff costs. I was contacted last night to take on a kid who had a psychotic break. Turns out the kid was abused by mom's boyfriend, not sexually, but definitely violently, and he had a break. From what I understand, he's a great kid, but he's definitely going to need some help, and this is not uncommon. We are in a middle of a crisis, and as I stated earlier, although we are significantly underfunded and undersourced, we're going full steam ahead because these children deserve our help. These women deserve our help. These young black males who are trying to develop and become strong black men need our help. These families who are struggling to hold things together need our help. I don't have a clue of how it's going to be done, but God has always made a way for the things that I've powered through on to be an impact, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I am going to ask that you guys show some love and show support if you believe in. If you don't believe in it, of course, don't do it. But if you believe in the work, if you've seen the consistency at which I've done what I've done, the level and detail that I've given to understanding the enigmatic issues and problems that face our community on so many different levels, and the ability to break that down, explain it, bring in solutions, then show some love and show some support. The information will be in the description box. With that being said, Kierra Coles. Now, I want to be very clear here, and even the link that I'm going to share in the box with this story so that you can be aware of it, because I'm going to start to feature at least once a week a young black female. May even do it once a day, but I'm going to definitely do it once a week. Thursday or Friday, I'm going to feature a young black female that's missing. Why? Because we have 75,000 black women missing and unaccounted for in the U.S. While black women make up less than 7% of the total population in this country, they make up 37% of the women who go missing in this country every year, on average over 100,000. Look, that's 100,000 going missing, black women. I want to be very clear here. When I highlight each of these women, it's as a microcosm to a much more larger and devastating issue. And it's absolutely imperative that we take this seriously, that we do this. And one of the things that really bothered me about the whole Kylie Russell situation is that she dimmed an already dark place, because we already don't get the press. We already don't get the resources that a blonde, blue-eyed female would get. One girl goes missing in the wilderness and her boyfriend comes home and the entire country's looking for her. It's a worldwide event. Can't think of her name now, but shoot, Natalie Holloway goes missing in Aruba. It becomes a 10-year search. It's documentaries, it's everything like that. and black women go missing every day, and you get posters that probably the parents made up and begging on social media for somebody to share it. And members of the media will actually admit that black women don't get the same coverage. Here's what normally happens. When a black woman goes missing, if it's a black female under the age of 18, she's automatically considered a runaway. Now, if a white girl goes missing under the age of 18, even if she's considered a runaway, she's still looked for as missing with a great deal of resources because she could be in danger. Now we have actually had some situations with the Odyssey Project where we've actually located people who were missing. A couple, about 3 years ago here in Houston, there was a young girl who disappeared. We found her. Some guy had her locked up in the house. And some kind of way she had gotten to her phone, and she would call and then turn the phone off. And so got it to the police. And again, just getting them to act on it. She probably wants to be there. She was underage and the dude was like 40. So he ends up going to prison, and she comes home, but she's got some healing to do. But for every one of these that we are actually able to find, and when I say we, I'm not just talking about my organization, because that's not something we specialize in. We just get involved. I share every picture that comes across my stream multiple times. I call and make phone calls. I try to connect with people. I know people in law enforcement, and this is when it definitely comes in handy. Certain things they can do, certain checks they can do, certain places they can look and have information. But the thing is, you'll find that the case files for a black woman, a black female, aren't anywhere as thick or as worked as hard as it is for a blonde, blue-eyed person. And so this is a problem. So when I talk about Kierra codes, which I'm about to do, understand that she is simply a microcosm and a representation of a much larger issue that we really truly need to focus on. But she disappeared in Chicago in 2018. She was roughly 3 months pregnant, looking forward to being a mom, very vivacious, young, beautiful young black baby. And people report seeing this guy show up to her house, leaving with her. She goes into what looks like a drugstore or something like that, goes to the ATM, and that's the last time she's seen. Again, I'm gonna share the link and you can kind of look up the story and see what's going on. And it's just sitting there. The mom is now making a cry out to the FBI to get involved because she doesn't feel like the police department is doing anything. They're dragging their feet. And one of the things that we have to look at is there needs to be in-house resources to be able to go out and look for our people, to be able to make phone calls and use technology and a bunch of other things to get underneath this thing. Because here's the problem. Because they know the same level of effort, energy, and value isn't given to black girls, sex traffickers, human traffickers target them more because parents aren't going to have the resources to make the noise. Parents aren't going to have the resources of a Natalie Holloway's family who literally put millions into trying to find her and get justice for the people who for the person who inevitably was responsible for killing her. Never found her, last I heard, but he ended up going to prison in I think in Peru. He ended up leaving, going to Peru and getting in trouble there and going to prison. But again, I know this why. Because there was money behind it. There was a constant story going on. This happened damn near 20 years ago, and here we are in 2023, and it's still on the freaking screen. I can turn on certain things that I look at to study behavior and stuff, and it's one of the cases that's on there. And so that's not going to happen for our women. So what's going on? What's the situation? What do we do? We're going to have to organize. I talk about this so much, and it's so daunting that people don't want to consider it. One of the biggest problems I think we have is that we look at what's going on and what's demanded of us in order to make a difference is so daunting that we don't even try. We just sit there and go, oh my God, this. And the thing is, it only gets worse. At some point, you have to buckle up, lace up your boots, tighten your belt and get out there and say, man, it's going to be uphill, but we got to do something or we're going to slip. We're slipping socioeconomically. We're slipping socially. We're slipping in the academic sphere. We don't have the representation we need in any particular area to do anything of any real intrinsic value in making something happen differently than what's happening right now. We've got a problem. And like I said, I'm just going to start bringing you real live people to show you that how many people out there that are literally missing. Some will probably never come home. Some are probably on trafficking cycles where they're being moved from city to city. Some have been sold off as slaves. Some are in entirely different countries. And we are going to have to become more educated in how it's done. The elaborate, sophisticated means through which it's done. We need to be more aware of how people are scouted and by these guys who are recruiting, scouted by the guys who are literally kidnapping and taking these young females, and I mean girls early as 10, 11, all the way up until young women in their 30s. We have a problem that I think we aren't taking serious. I think we look at it and go, wow, that's sad. We've got to get out of that. We have to get out of that aloofness and disconnectivity that we have in how we move and how we operate, because that is definitely one of our problems. We're not connected. The reason it's hard for us to get on code like they get on code, how they go literally raise $2 million for one of theirs who literally illegally choked a man to death and gets charged $2 million in 2 days. How they do it is they're just simply on code. And they wouldn't raise that $2 million for that same dude if he had choked out a white person. Get where I'm going with this? This is solely, we're not going to allow them to hurt anybody. Now, if there'd have been a white homeless person that he choked out, they would have been disgusted too. It's amazing how they frame, how they move, and how they operate, and how they handle us. I don't expect them to do anything but be who they are, but we are going to have to learn how to get on code. We're going to have to learn how to show up. That's why when I saw that riverboat situation, I smiled, and I'm like, yeah, that's us showing up. Now, that's us showing up in an obvious physical situation where we probably are going to have the advantage. But we need to show up financially. We need to show up socially. We need to show up politically. We need to show up in situations where our women are missing. We need to show up where our boys are being mishandled. We need to show up where we're being over-policed. We need to show up in all these areas. And we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to put our minds together. We got to come together, actually think strategically, create agendas. Just being upset isn't a plan. Complaining isn't a plan or a strategy. Whining isn't a plan or strategy. We have some things that we need to literally sit down and create strategies and plans and be able to work these things out. That's why you have think tanks, so you can look at all the things you're facing and come up with solutions of how to do it, where you can study how your oppressor and your enemy and your opposition and your competition is moving, so that you can come up with legitimate, viable strategies to oppose the aggression and do something. It's literally not going to happen because you're upset. It's not going to happen because you wish it. It's not going to happen because you convince them of their moral failures. None of that stuff matters to them. This is about power. This is about power. You're not going to get power standing alone, only thinking about yourself, because that's just how they're picking us off. Little by little, because if they pick us off slowly enough and in increments small enough, we'll never get riled up enough to stand up. And before we know it, we'll be so so outmanned and outgunned that we won't, even if we stand up, we won't have the numbers. That's what they're doing. They're imprisoning us. They're driving us into mental instability. They're driving us into poverty. They're driving us into poor health. The food sucks. We can't afford real good food. We are in a constant state of stress, which leads to disease. I talked to you about epigenetics and how that impacts your overall health outcomes, adverse childhood experiences, how that impacts your overall health outcomes. I've talked to you about all these different things. I've written about them in 26 different books. I've shared it with you. I've lectured on it. One thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be traveling around, and I'm going to be helping people set things up around the country. I don't know how we're going to get the funding for it, but we need a universal network where we have a universal idea and standard of what a black man is, so that we have a rite of passage and a proper socialization pattern to get young boys to be young men who are pro-social, productive, and empowered, who are not easily distracted and pulled into criminality, and have the means by which to grow. We need young women who understand the value in themselves and how they can come up and what they need to do, and to be a force in their own right. We need to be protective of our children. We need to be creating businesses. Anything where we dominate spending, we should dominate ownership. So I'm going to challenge you. Pay attention to this. This baby more than likely is not around. I don't think this is a sex trafficking thing. I think this guy killed her. And this is just how I feel. Unfortunately, that's something else we need to talk about. We definitely don't want to talk about is that violence that's coming from our men towards our women. And, you know, man, look at what happened with these guys. And I know it's a little bit off track, but look what happened with these guys in Mississippi. 2 black men literally tortured and beaten, one shot in the mouth. Luckily he survived. I don't know how you, literally gun put in his mouth in the trigger pull, and he survived. These 6 cops called the goon squad in, Rankin County, Mississippi. We've got to have the means by which to stand and push back. It's time to stop being docile. It's time to stop sitting around hoping and wishing. It's time to stop sitting around waiting on somebody else to fix problems we can fix. It is time to stand up and do something exceptional, do something extraordinary, be what we were designed to be. We are a supernatural and special people, but we are behaving and carrying ourselves with a docility and compliance that says we are afraid to become what we should. And we are just moving along and going along, getting along, hoping it don't happen to us. It's time to stand up and do something. Again, get involved, because it's not just about Kierra. Kierra is today's topic because she deserves her name said. Say her name, Kierra Coles. Kierra Coles. Say her name. Go get this link, look at it, read it, share it on your page. Call some of the, because I will be on tomorrow, calling Chicago's police department and applying pressure, sending emails to Chicago's police department, to Chicago's mayor, to some of the state legislatures there in Chicago. This can't go. And the thing is, you just say, what is that going to do? Nobody's going to, well, that's just it. We always do. Nobody's going to do nothing. No. I remember sitting up saying I was going to interview certain people in order to create my Path to Generational Wealth course. Nothing about who these people were versus I was said they would give me the time of day. It took me 10 years, but I got to every last one of them. And it started with me just trying. So again, that is what I'm challenging you to do. Step out there and send a letter, make a phone call. Enough of us do it, and it starts to become a thing. Enough of us share it, enough of us make commentary about it, then all of a sudden we say, okay, and then we just start highlighting people. We make our own America's Most Wanted. But instead of it being wanted for prison, we want our babies home. We want our women safe. We want to at least know where they're at. If we're bringing home remains, we want to give their family as much. I don't like the term closure, because you don't never get closure once you lose somebody, but I do. So that's it. Look, again, if you believe in what we're doing, if you believe in all the things that we have going on at the Black Voice, the Odyssey Project, Black Man Lead, what I've done, look in the description box. Click the link and give through the organization's CashApp account. That information is in there as well. But whatever you do, we can't sit around and not do anything. And we're going to do, like I said, we're going for it. I'm going to be working with the young man that was brought to me on yesterday. It's probably going to be a long process, but I'm going to work with him. I'm going to spend time with him. Now, this one actually happens to be in Houston, but I've had people come to me as far as the East Coast and the West Coast. Detroit, Shy. That's, how I know what's going on up there, because I have people brought to me from all of this kids here. So I'm actually going to probably spend personal face-to-face time with him, which is always special to me. And hopefully I can help him reel himself back in, because right now he's in a bad place. One way or another, we're going to do it, though. And I would love to have your support on all of this. Ongoing support. With that being said, look, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable remainder of your evening. Take care.